So good day everyone, I'm Jamaica Del Barrio and today we're going to talk about photography. So what is photography? Photography is actually one of the most powerful forms of visual communication, especially in today's digital age. So from social media posts to news coverage to advertisements lahat is nakaka-apekto kung paano natin naiintindihan ang reality. However, photography is not just about taking pictures. It involves technical knowledge, creativity, and critical thinking. So why are we studying photography? First is to explain the basic concepts and technical aspects of photography. Kung paano gumagana ang isang camera, anong meaning ng exposure. Second is demonstrate how photographs can be analyzed and interpreted. It means we're not just judging a photograph on a surface level. We should be able to understand the deeper context behind it. Pangatlo is develop critical viewing skills. Pang-apat is highlight the ethical responsibilities of photographers. So bilang isang humawak ng isang camera, may mga ethical responsibilities din tayo na kailangan natin gawin. So what is photography? Photography comes from the Greek words phos, meaning light, and graphe, it means drawing. So it literally means drawing with light. Essentially, it is the process of capturing light using a camera to create an image. What is photography? It is just an art or is it just a science? So it's actually both. So in an art, which is the creative expression, is kung paano nagde-decide ang photographer kung paano kukunin ng isang photograph. Ito yung timing ng pagkuha, yung angle, yung kulay. So lahat yun is artistic decision ng isang photographer. So think about it. Magkaiba ang kuha ng isang professional photographer sa hindi. Because they have different artistic eye. So yun lang yun. And then science is the technical control of light. So may mga settings ang camera na kailangan nating maintindihan to better enhance our photographs. So for example is the exposure, the saturation is, lahat yun is kailangan nating matutunan or maintindihan kung paano nag-work para makuha natin yung tamang photograph na gusto natin. So it's two things at the same time. It is both an art and a science. So that's it for the introduction of photography.
So, dako naman po tayo sa exposure. So, exposure refers to the amount of light that reaches the camera sensor. It determines whether an image is too dark, underexposed, too bright, overexposed, and thus is the properly balanced. So, exposure is called by three elements known as the exposure triangle. So, exposure triangle is here, as you can see, the underexposed, yung medyo dark, yung correctly exposed is yung sakto lang, and yung overexposed naman is yung mataas na masyado na yung exposure na over na sa light. Then, next naman po is yung aperture. So, aperture, basically, ito yung butas ng camera lens na nagpapasok ng ilaw. So, parang lang like yung mata natin na kapag madilim, lumalaki yung pupil ng mata natin, ganun din sa camera. So, sinusukat ito gamit ng f-stop. Yung mga numero tulad ng yung f/1.4, f/8 at f/16. Baka nakita nyo na rin yan sa mga camera ninyo. So, most important dito is kapag mahaba ang f number, gaya ng f/1.4, ibig sabihin, malaki ang butas ng lens. Ang epekto nito is like, una, maraming ilaw ang pumapasok. Pangalawa, itong like maganda, blurry yung background. So, ito rin yung tinatawag na shallow depth of field, pero huwag kayong maglala kasi mas mahalaga yung term na mag-alala sa term kasi ang mahalaga is blurry yung likod. So ngayon, baliktad naman, kapag mataas ang f number, gaya ng f/16, maliit ang butas ng lens. So ang mangyayari dito is konting ilaw lang ang papasok kaya medyo magdidilim ang picture, pero sharp ang buong image mula harapan hanggang likuran. So, ito naman yung tinatawag na, ito naman yung kabaliktaran ng nauna. Ito yung tinatawag deeper depth of field. So, dito sa part na to, tingnan nyo, yung table sa photo. Mula F slash 1.4 hanggang F slash 22, pansin nyo, hanggang tumaas ang numero, lumiliit yung butas. Sa F slash 1.4, imagine nyo like, pero konti lang ang sharp. Sa F slash 22, parang funnel siya. Konting ilaw pumapasok pero lahat sharp. So, an example of this is yung gamitin yung F slash 1.4 sa portrait o selfie. Yung tipong kayo lang kita. Tapos, yung nasa likod nyo parang sabog. Ganon. So, gamitin naman yung F16 sa group picture. Yung kapag magkakaibigan kayo tapos kitang-kita lahat ng mukha kahit yung nasa dulo. Pang landscape din yun. Kunwari may bundok sa likod, sharp din yun. So, key takeaways lang dito para hindi kayo malado is, tandaan nyo lang na maliit na F number, ibig sabihin is malaking butas, blur ang background. Kapag malaking F number, maliit na butas, sharp ang background. So, yun lang po.
So next is yung shutter speed. So shutter speed is siya yung tumutukoy sa haba ng oras na nananatiling bukas itong shutter ng camera para makapasok yung liwanag dito sa sensor. So kapag gumamit ka ng fast shutter speed, gaya na lang ng 1/1000s, literal na napi-freeze yung motion ng subject mo. Sabihin na natin na moving object, yung kukuha naman ng litrato. Kapag gumamit ka ng mabilis na shutter speed is mapi-freeze lang yung motion nun and parang in place lang yung magiging resulta ng image na kakalabasan. So kaya siya yung ginagamit sa mga sports kapag mga-picture ka, sa mga wildlife photography kung saan kailangan makuha yung bawat detalye ng mabilis na actions. Kaya yun ang go-to settings nila kapag yun ang kukuha na ng litrato. So on the other hand, yung slow shutter speed naman is nagre-range siya from 1/30s pababa and nagpo-produce siya ng tinatawag na motion blur. So ginagamit siya para sa mga artistic na shots like sa waterfalls, light trails ng mga sasakyan kapag gabi. So kaya nagkakaroon ng motion blur is yun nga, may tendency daw na makuha yung slight movements or yun nga, since mabagal mag-shot yung lens ng camera, parang may fraction ng light na makakasama dun sa pagkuha ng litrato na which creates the motion blur. So dito is makikita natin yung difference nung slow shutter speed tapos yung mabilis na shutter speed. So kapag slow shutter speed, makikita naman natin na mas visible yung motion blur, mas malabo, and mas kita yung pagka-blurry effect. While sa faster shutter speed is mas in place lang yung character kahit gumagalaw. Yun, mas freeze yung motion, mas less likely mag-appear yung motion blur. So next naman is yung ISO. So basically yung ISO is siya yung sensitivity ng camera sensors mo sa liwanag. So isipin mo na lang na siya yung nagsisilbing artificial boost para mas maging maliwanag yung shots mo kahit madilim yung surroundings. And ang pinaka-common rule dito is kapag maliwanag yung paligid, gaya na ng outdoor shots, shots sa beach, or sa kahit anong maliwanag na environment, dapat naka-low ISO yung camera mo para hindi masyadong sensitive sa light. So usually nagre-range siya from 100 to 400 and dito mo makukuha yung pinaka-sharp at pinaka-malinis na image quality. Kasi nga, hindi na kailangan mag-effort ng sensor para hanapin yung liwanag. Pero in reality, since yun nga, di naman lagi perfect yung lighting natin, doon na pumapasok yung pag-adjust ng ISO natin. So sabihin na natin kapag pumasok ka ng kulong na building, yung walang bintana, sa simbahan, or sa kahit saan na madilim na environment, dun mo na kailangan taasan yung ISO mo. So, nagre-range siya from 1,600 pataas. So, basically, ang ginagawa nito sa camera mo is ina-amplify niya yung lens para mas maging sensitive siya sa light, para mas maging maliwanag. And, yun nga, binuboost niya yung signal na natatanggap ng sensors. So, magandang analogy dito is, halimbawa na lang sa volume knob ng speaker. Di ba kapag sobrang hina na ng kanta is tinotodo natin yung volume or ina-adjust natin para mas marinig or mas maging audible yung sound. So, habang tinataasan natin ito ng tinataasan, nagkakaroon ng parang hissing sound or parang static noise. So, ganun din sa photography. Kapag masyadong mataas yung ISO mo is nagkakaroon siya ng grains or nga digital noise na tinatawag. Siya yung parang static texture, yung magaspang, yung parang sa lumang pictures na makikita mo. So, siya yung, yun, mas nagpapadumi dun sa larawan even though na pinapaliwanag niya. So, dito naman is makikita natin yung comparison ng low ISO tapos high ISO. So, makikita natin dun sa low ISO is since yun nga, hindi sensitive yung lens niya, di nag-e-effort yung camera sensor na maghanap ng liwanag, kaya madilim yung shot. Pero kapag tinaasa mo yung ISO, makikita natin dito habang tinataasan is lumiliwanag siya ng lumiliwanag hanggang dito na sa 1,600. Makikita natin na mas visible na siya masyado yung lightings, and yun nga, mas kita na rin yung mga kulay kumpara dun sa low ISO. So, importanteng ma-master natin ito para yun nga, alam natin yung gagamitin natin depending on the environment, and mas ma-perfect natin yung mga shots na kukuhanin natin.
So now let's proceed naman pagdating sa composition or composition in photography. So aside from the description na display dito, which is yun nga, composition is the arrangement of elements within a photograph. So yeah, yun nga, it's all about the arrangement of elements. Parang ganun din sa music, arrangement of notes and stuff like that. Parang ganun. Pagdating naman dito sa ating photography is that in a much more simpler term, ang composition is the way how we will guide the viewer's attention or yung paningin nila, yun nga, attention nila sa picture or photograph na gusto natin ipakita. So with composition, we have control of what we want them to see or kung ano yung effect na gusto natin ipakita sa kanila, like yung emotion or yung dating, basta something like that. So we'll be discussing the types or how they are applied in real life, specifically those na display dito, which we have rule of thirds, leading lines, symmetry, and framing. So ito, yung mga types na pag-uusapan natin niya, we have rule of thirds, golden spiral, diagonal, S-curve, L-shape, and pyramid. So we'll show some real life examples a little bit. So just a much more for an example of agad kung anong epekto ng composition pagdating sa photography. So, we have two images here. The first one having a bad composition and the second one having a good composition. So, looking at the picture with the bad composition, makita natin na ang kalat niya, tingnan. So, like, di mo alam kung saan ka titingin. Bilang tayo, pati ako, bilang tayo na tumitingin dyan, di mo alam kung saan ka titingin. Gusto mo ba tumingin sa bato pero may mga tao nakaharap sa baba? Gusto mo naman tingnan yung mga tao sa baba pero may mga nakaharang na something or yun yung mga bato sa unahan, which is hindi mo na alam kung saan ka titingin, and no matter pa parang stolen or random photo lang yung dating sa'yo, so parang walang artistic something na dating, wala siyang vibe. Pero within good composition, here we eliminate any random elements na nakalagay. Kasi nga, ang composition is all about arranging those elements. So here, we discarded all those people that we've seen with the bad composition. Ngayon, parang tinutuon na yung focus natin within that landscape. Na talagang go-focus sa gitna with the water, with yung malaking landmark, di ba? Mas malinis siya tignan and mas may effect and vibe siya. Though medyo feel ko enhance na yung photo, but as you can see, may dating siya compared dun sa kalat. So, let's go first with the first type of composition. And one of that is the rule of thirds, the most common one actually, and most known, mas kilala. Even if you are not a professional photographer, most likely you've heard about the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds uses a grid, which is a grid with 9 areas. Yun na nga yun. Makikita nyo dyan. So we have a 3x3, parang Rubik's Cube or parang nilalaro natin ng tic-tac-toe. So with rule of thirds, these lines allows us to have areas. Excuse me. So, yun nga yung mga areas na yan, and other than that, we also have the lines, the vertical one and the horizontal ones. And within those lines, we can see that meron sa kanilang nag-intersect. We call this intersection. So 4 intersections. So we have 2 vertical and 2 horizontal, 9 areas, and 4 intersection. And all of those that I've mentioned, yun yung mga ginagamit dito sa rule of thirds. So sa mga examples na pinapakita ko dito, ang most commonly ginamit dito, kasi ito nga naman ang most madaling application nito, is yung paggamit ng mga intersections na yan. So yung intersections na yan is, it works like a crosshair if you're playing first-person shooter games. Parang tinututok mo lang dun sa part na gusto mo mabigyan ng highlight. So yun nga. So here, ginamit natin ito dalawang specific area, but specifically, pinatama natin siya dito sa dalawang crosshair. Kasi gusto natin ibigay yung attention ng image sa matanda. And the other one, ganun din, similar application dito naman sa tao nakaupo. So when it hit within those 2 intersection and within this line. Ito naman is yung last image. As we can see, ginamit niya yung intersections and yung lines para ma-align siya dun sa landmark. Yung this, kita nyo, sinama na din natin tong maliit na to, pinatama natin siya dito, and the line, and then the 2 intersections. You can see, ano siya tingnan, and parang automatically nang nag-guide yung mata natin dun. Kasi nga, yung rule of thirds is how it works, or the logic it follows is that inaalaw nito yung mata natin to naturally look, or parang may natural logic din kasi yung mata natin sa pagtingin ng mga bagay-bagay. So parang yun yung minagamit ng rule of thirds. Basta patamain mo siya dito, ilagay mo siya dito sa gitna, parang automatic na agad alam ng mata natin yung saan titingin. Parang gano'n. So sa golden spiral, similar application with how rule of thirds is, like natural na magugo yung mata natin doon. So golden spiral uses the pattern of the golden ratio, as you can see naman here. But hindi naman talaga more on mathematics ang gamit dito, since nakalagay siya golden spiral, not the ratio itself. Kasi nga ang ginagamit talaga dito is yung spiral lang. Meaning, yun. Ang way na paggamit ito is that you imagine a spiral, or you can use a tool that has this shape or whatever, and then ipapatama niyo yung subject nyo dun sa inyong picture dun mismo sa gitna nung spiral, and then our eyes, or the viewer's eyes, will just naturally go with the spiral even if the spiral does not exist, kasi nga imaginary lang to, parang guideline lang. Automatically, without that, ang pagtutuon na talaga ng mata mo is yung puno. So parang mag-guide na siya dun. I-scope niya yung buong area na yan, the background, hanggang mapunta siya dun sa gitna ng spiral. So ganoon lang. Diagonal, so this one utilizes more of shapes rather than having guidelines or whatever. So ang ginagamit nito is yung diagonal line. Instead of horizontal, or having horizontal or vertical lines pagdating sa inyong photography, we use diagonal, meaning diagonal lines. So the first example is the San Francisco Bridge ata ito. As you can see, pa-diagonal siya. Hindi natin siya pinicturean na diretso or pa vertical, pa horizontal. Hindi. Diagonal. So, and then the second picture as well, ganun din, may diagonal ang dito sa inupuan ni Kuya. So, how this works is that diagonal effect na parang ginagawa niya is it allows the image to have some sort of a movement. So, parang hindi naman technically gumagalaw sa paningin natin, pero alam natin na yung mga kotse dito is papalayo sa atin. Parang ganun effect. Nararamdaman mo yung movement ng scenery. Nararamdaman mo yung vibe the moment the picture was took. Parang ganun din yung similar dito. Yung pababa si kuya or paakyat. Parang ganun na effect. The next one is the S-curve. So another one that uses like natural image instead of having guidelines is yung S-curve. So, obvious naman mula dun sa picture natin and gets nyo na agad sa tingin ko is that may pa-S siyang pattern. So, unang tingin mo pa lang yung real-S pa siya. So, yun. So, same lang din sa diagonal. It creates some sort of an effect na parang nakaka-capture mo yung moment ng scenery. Kasi yung eyes natin automatically nag-go with that flow ng S. Nag-go tayo sa ng reels, diba? Ina-guide natin yung mata natin hanggang sa boom. And basta ganun. So S-curve, even if patop view pa yan, front view or whatever, as long as there's something na curve, na pa letter S or more than, mas marami pang curve sa S, something like that. So sa L-shape naman, another one that can parang guideline sa din, mala guideline na din yung susundan mo dito, is that, yun, L-shape na composition. So, in this one, you use like the image or yung landmark moment or whatever na pinipicturean mo is that you're trying to make the letter L. Hindi naman technically L, but something na parang frame siya. So, sa first one is yung couple. So, ginamit nating pa horizontal is yung sa mag-couple and then the rest is like yung sa kotse and stuff like that. Ito naman is sa building and then yung mismong natitirang landscape before it touches the water. So, the way how L-shape works is that it creates an enframing effect. Parang ini-enframe mo yung image na hindi mo masyadong pagtutuunan ng attention yung other parts kasi nga, it's all about bringing focus to your viewer. So, ito parang halos di mo na siya papansinin. Papansinin mo lang talaga is yung nasa edge nung sa frame until dun sa mismong gitna ng frame. Parang ganun yung effect na ginagawa na in framing. Kinukulong niya yung certain part of the image para mas pagtuunan mo yun ng pansin. So, pyramid, another madahilan din na composition is pyramid. Something na triangular. May triangular effect dun sa inyong image. So, as you see, the first one is another wedding type of photo. So, ipapfollow nyo, hindi naman technically kailangan triangular shape, but it creates that effect. So, again, effect nito sa viewers that titignan mo yung triangle talaga. May ganung effect na siya. Magnet na yung paningin mo dun. Kasi nga, natural shape lang siya. Pyramid or triangle na madaling ma-recognize ng mata natin. Similar with these two children. Tapos same nyo, pa-triangular yung nila and mas nabibigyan natin ng attention. Ang bilis natin makakatch up. So, yun lang naman for compositions. There are a lot more. Actually, ang napakadami. Pero yun na discuss natin is to get the basics of how compositions work. Kasi the rest is more really advanced na siya masyado. So, depth of field or DOF, na-discuss na rin ito kanina or na-mention na rin. But depth of field refers to the range of distance that appears sharp in an image. So, depth of field, yung lalim ng paligid in Tagalog. So, in here, we're talking about how we create some sort of focus. Yung sharpness na tinutukoy dito is yung image gusto mong mas palitawin. Sharp means mas malitaw or mas malinaw dun sa image mo. We have two types that we'll be discussing, which is the shallow DOF and the deep DOF. Yung shallow is more on sharp yung gusto mo, yung subject mo dun sa picture, where the rest or the background is blurred. Well, in deep DOF naman, most of the image is in focus, meaning lahat is visible or lahat is fairly sharp. So like this, a visual representation. Shallow, yung subject natin is itong stickman nakataas, and yun, siya yung sharp and the rest is blurred. Moderate naman sa kalagitnaan nun. And deep is that everything is in focus or everything is fairly in focus. So, another example, ito yung deep. Ito nakapansin natin yung puno and yung aso at the same time. While shallow, yung aso lang yung nabibigyan ng pansin. Another example pa, ito, shallow. Kasi nga, ang more on priority dito is itong water drop or something. The rest is blurred. And here is deep because everything is fairly distributed. Everything in short, everything is visible. So, depth of field is all about controlling the focus or mas pinalilitaw mo yung subject mo compared sa other elements ng photograph. So, that's it for depth of field and composition.
Hello po, I'm Irene May Sakayan and I'm going to discuss the white balance. White balance adjusts the color temperature of an image. It ensures that colors appear natural under different lighting conditions such as sunlight, fluorescent light, and indoor lighting. So what is white balance exactly? So on this slide po, you'll see a chart illustrating the Kelvin scale, which measures the color temperature. And it's important to understand that white balance doesn't really affect your exposure. Instead, it adjusts the appearance of colors in the image. Yung itinatawag nating how bright or dark your image is. So, alam naman po natin that light has different colors. Example, mornings are blue, while candle lights are orange. So our brain automatically fixes these things so things would look normal to us. But yung mga camera, hindi po siya ganun katalino. Kaya kadalasan, hindi mo mapapansin yung mga weird colors until you actually see the photo. So yung white balance po basically is just the camera's way of fixing that. It cancels out those unwanted blues or oranges tints, so that something white in real life actually looks white in your photos. And now let's look at the color temperature scale. This is where we measure the temperature and it ranges from cool to warm. So the color contrast of light is referred to as its color temperature, and it's rated in degrees Kelvin. So you'll see this marked with a capital K. For instance po, yung typical light is around 5,000 K. And most digital cameras have automatic white balance, but also have specific options for different sources of light. Example po, if your camera has settings to match the light around you, like if you're indoors with those yellowish light, yung paligid yung magmumukha siyang orange. Kaya yung camera nag-add siya ng cool blue tones para ma-balance out yung warmth. And vice versa, if your surrounding looks orange naman, masyadong cool yung surrounding mo, mag-add naman yung camera ng yellow tones para ma-cancel out naman yung cool tones. Okay? So, basically, in short lang, if the light is too orange, the camera adds blue, and if the light is too blue, the camera adds orange. Alright, we've mastered the color temperature na. So, now we're going to talk about light. And when we talk about light, we're talking about exposure. And this is arguably the most critical foundation of photography. So, exposure in digital photography is governed by three fundamental interconnected elements. And this system is called the exposure triangle. And the exposure triangle consists of the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO. So these three elements must work together to achieve the proper exposure, and adjusting one element requires balancing the others. So, if you ever wondered bakit minsan sobrang dilim or sobrang liwanag ng mga photos natin, that's all about the exposure. So, in simple terms, exposure is just the amount of light na pumapasok doon sa camera sensors natin. Para magmukhang perfect yung shot, kailangan natin i-balance yung tinatawag natin na exposure triangle. So next po is the aperture. This is the first element dun sa exposure triangle natin, which is the opening of the lens of the camera. Natakal na po yung kanina dun sa mga previous slides. So, ang ibig sabihin lang nito basically, kapag malaki ang bukas ng camera lens natin, maraming light yung pumapasok doon. And if maliit naman yung bukas ng lenses natin, less light naman ang papasok. Pero magiging sharp and malinaw yung buong image. Para kang nagsisquint ng eyes mo para malinaw yung buong view. And kapag malaki naman yung butas or yung opening ng lens, blurry naman yung background ang result nun. Next naman is the shutter speed or the time. So, ito yung kung gaano kabilis na kumarap yung camera. Kung mabagal ang kurap or slow shutter siya, mas matagal makakapasok ang light. So, perfect po siya for night shots, pero magiging more blurry yung photos. Kung mabilis naman or fast shutter, parang biglang magsasara naman agad yung light. So, parang mabilis pumasok yung light. As usually ginagamit siya sa mga sports na pictures or sa mga birds para makuha yung stop motion. Next naman po is the ISO or the sensitivity. Kapag sobrang dilim yung i-take natin na photo, tataasan natin yung ISO para maging sensitive yung camera natin and magiging maliwanag ang shot. Pero be careful lang sa paggamit ng ISO kasi sabi ng mga professional na photographers, kapag masyadong mataas yung ISO na ginamit mo, magre-result siya sa noise sa photos natin, yung mga grain sa pictures. So, mas preferably po, as much as possible, avoid using high ISO. Okay? So, ito na yung exposure triangle, which visualize how these three pillars interact. So as you change the aperture, you control how much of your scene is in focus, and as you adjust the shutter speed naman, you decide whether to freeze or drop of water in motion or capture a motion blur of a passing car. And as you change ISO, you control the camera's sensitivity to light, balancing brightness against digital noise. So, itong exposure triangle, it's all about the balance lang. If you change one, you usually have to adjust the others para makuha mo yung perfect shot. Yun lang po. Thank you.
So let's proceed to the historical background and ethical issues in photography. So let's discuss historical background first. So photography started in 1893 nung pagkakaimbento ng daguerreotype. So ang daguerreotype isa yung paraan ng pagkuha ng permanent pictures. So yun medyo matagal at komplikado yung process kumpara sa cameras na ginagamit natin ngayon. So, bago pa man magkaroon ng actual cameras, gumagamit muna yung mga artist ng camera obscura. So, yung camera obscura naman ay isang device na nagpo-project ng image para magsilbing guide sa pagdrawing. So, para siyang old version ng camera na walang capture button. So, habang lumilipas yung panahon, unti-unti na yung nag-improve yung photography. So, mula dun sa glass plates, naging film cameras, at ngayon, meron na tayong digital cameras at smartphones. So, ibig sabihin, mula sa mahal at mahirap gamitin noon, naging mabilis, portable at accessible na siya ngayon. So, kaya halos lahat ng tao ay kaya na kumuha ng litrato or picture anytime, as anywhere. Ito yung sinasabi ko kaninang daguerreotype process. So, as you can see, marami siyang process talaga and masyadong mahirap. Ayan, meron ditong unang step is yung clipping the corners and bending the edges. Sunod, polishing. Next, scintillation, exposure, development, fixing, then gelding. So, dito naman tayo sa ethical issues in photography. So, dahil nga malakas yung effects ng picture sa mga tao ngayon, may kasama rin itong responsibilities. Una ay yung consent. So, consent is respecting people's privacy. So, ibig sabihin, dapat may respect pa rin tayo sa privacy ng tao bago natin sila kunan ng picture. Lalo na kung personal moment or private situation yon. Hindi porket may camera tayo tapos nakikita natin sila is pwede na natin agad kunan ng picture. Siyempre, importante pa rin yung consent. Next ay yung manipulation, avoiding misleading edits. So, eto naman yung sobrang pag-edit ng picture na pwedeng magbigay ng maling idea dun sa viewers o sa makakakita ng picture. Halimbawa, may binago ka dun sa image para magmukhang iba sa totoong nangyari. So, kaya dapat dito maging honest sa pag-edit or i-avoid yung grabeng pag-edit na nagiging misleading na yung kalalabasan. Pangatlo ay yung representation, avoiding stereotypes. So, ito naman is yung ay tungkol sa kung paano natin pinapakita yung subject sa isang picture. So, mahalaga ito kasi minsan sa yung isang picture lang baga is nagkakaroon na ng impression yung ibang tao. Halimbawa, kung yung isang group, pinapakita lang natin lagi sa picture yung mga negative situations, so pwede nang isipin ng ibang tao na ganun talaga sila kahit hindi naman. Minsan, isang side lang ng story yung nakikita sa picture, hindi yung buong reality. So, pwede rin maapektuhan ng angle, timing, o caption yung dating ng picture. Kaya mahalaga yung fair at maayos na pagpapakita sa tao para hindi makagawa ng stereotype o maling tingin yung makakita ng picture. So, photographs can influence public perception. So, responsibility is important. So, sa madaling salita, yung photography daw ay hindi lang basta pagkuha ng picture. Isa rin itong powerful tool na kayang makaapekto sa opinion ng ibang tao. Kaya importante na gamitin natin ito sa tama, may respect at still may responsibility.
So, for our key stakeholders, photography is not just taking a picture from your phone or on your cameras. Meron din siyang different groups na involved dito. The first key stakeholders na involved here is the photographers. Ito yung someone who captures the moments and tells stories through images. Next is subjects. Ito naman is yung focus ng photographer dun sa image na kinukunan niya. Like, for example, a picture of a sunset. So, ang focus ng photographer dun sa image na yan is yung sunset. So, yung subject niya sa image is yung sunset. Next naman is yung audience. Ito naman yung mga tao na tumitingin at nang-i-interpret ng mga images. And kung ano nga ba yung meaning behind those images na nakikita nila. Media organizations. Sila naman yung mga nagpa-publish or naglalabas ng mga pictures sa news or social media. Gaya na lang ng mga media influencers. Next is educators. Sila naman is yung mga educators na nagtuturo sa atin kung paano intindihin yung mga visual images. So it's not just a simple act. It is a deliberate form of storytelling. Every decision, angle, lighting, focus affects how a story is told. Therefore, both technical skills and ethical awareness are necessary. So in short, photography is about choices. Your skills make the photo look good, but your ethics makes the story right. Hindi lang siya tungkol sa aesthetics, tungkol din siya sa truth.
So, good day everyone. So, I am Janlyn Lawrence Arnael from BSIT 2A Group 1 in Readings in Visual Arts. So, in this example, we will look at how a single photograph of a protest can be presented in different ways and how each expression or presentations can change the meaning that the audience perceives. So, kung paano ba nag-iiba ang paka-interpret ng isang individual to a different types of pictures. Specifically, kung paano siya na-take, kung paano siya na-shot, kung wide shot ba siya or close up. So, first of all, a wide shot. So, ito yung contrast na pagfo-focusan natin sa topic ko. Yung wide shot and the close up. So, wide shot, ito, example natin. So, a wide shot of a protest shows the overall size of the crowd. It gives viewers a sense of scale, showing how many people are involved and the general atmosphere of the event. So, dito makikita yung environment, kung saan nakasituate, kung saan ang venue, more on that information alone, dun nagfo-focus ang wide shot since yun ang scope niya. So, on the other hand, a close-up shot focuses on individuals' faces and expressions. So, this type of framing highlights emotional intensity, allowing viewers to feel the passion, anger, or determination of the protesters on a more personal level. Since kapag mga close-up shot, dito talaga natin ma-highlight ang yung subject natin or yung individual sa example natin sa protesters. Doon natin ma-highlight yung emotions na ipinagdalaban nila, yung emotions na meron sila at that moment compared kapag wide shot, hindi naman kasi makakapture ng wide shot yung emotions nila kasi hindi naman talaga sa kanila nakafocus. Well, mainly sa kanila nakafocus pero dun sa scope, dun sa scale. So, both images are real and come from the same event, but they communicate different meanings depending on how they are captured and presented. So, this only shows that photography is not just about what is shown, but also about how it is shown, and also on which can influence interpretation and understanding.
Hello everyone, I am Nanatas Lasada, and for today's I'm gonna be discussing about the importance of critical viewing. So first, what is critical viewing? Critical viewing means analyzing images carefully instead of just accepting what we see at first glance. In today's digital world, we are constantly exposed to images through social media, news, and of course the online platforms. So, because of this, it is very important that we learn how to examine these images critically. It also helps people to understand hidden messages. So, sometimes images are designed to influence our thoughts or emotions, and by analyzing them, we can see the deeper meaning behind them. So, for example, di ba yung mga advertisements, minsan hindi lang products yung pinapakita nila. They are also trying to make us feel something like pagiging happy or successful kapag binili natin yung product nila. That's why they are advertising. So, the second one, it also detect manipulation or fake images. So, with today's digital world and with today's modern technology, images can easily edited or altered. Critical viewing allows us to question whether an image is real or had been modified, diba? For example, may mga edited photos ng celebrities or even fake disasters images na kumakalat sa online. So, kung marunong tayo mag-critical view or kung marunong tayo mapapansin natin kung may mali or edited ba yung images. So, since today nga nasasakop na tayo ng AI, we can just put an image there and prompt na ganito, ganyan, like, swatch the faces of this celebrity with my face, ganun. So, parang may edit na siya. Like, ganun na kadali ngayon maka-edit and ganun na din kadali ngayon makakalat ng mga fake images. Kaya dapat marunong tayo mag-critical view. So, the third one, it also avoid misinformation, pinaka-importante. Not everything we see online is true. So, by critical viewers, we can prevent ourselves from believing or spreading
false information. 'Di ba halimbawa, may nag-viral na post na may picture tapos may caption na hindi naman related, 'di ba? Tapos kapag tayo nag-check, pwede tayo maniwala at maikalat pa yun sa maling impormasyon. 'Di ba ngayon nga pwede nang makapalit ng muka kahit sa video or sa photos, i-prompt po lang siya sa AI, pwede niya na mapalitan yun. Kaya ganun ka-importante ngayon ng pagiging critical viewers, lalo na sa online. Ang daming kumakalat, super daming fake news ngayon sa online. So, in summary or overall, critical viewing is very, very important skill that helps us become more aware, informed, and responsible in interpreting visual content. So, that's all. Thank you.
So for the counter-argument and rebuttal, so some people believe that photography is purely technical or instinctive, meaning iniisip ng iba na photography is just about adjusting the camera settings or simply capturing the moments without a deeper thinking. However, this idea is not entirely correct. Why? Because first, every photo is influenced by perspective and bias. Meaning, for example, bilang isang photographer, syempre tayo magde-decide what to include in the frame, what angle to use, and when to take the shots. And dahil dito, a photo reflects the photographer's own point of view, not just a reality. Second is analysis enhances understanding rather than reducing emotion. So, for example, kapag nag-analyze tayo ng photo, syempre, tumitingin tayo sa elements like composition, lighting, and the message. And this does not remove the emotion of the image. Instead, it helps us to understand the message more deeply and appreciate it more. So again, photography is not just about purely technical or instinctive. It is a meaningful process that involves creativity and critical thinking.
So, nandito naman tayo sa ethical frameworks. Ethical frameworks are a system or guidelines that help people decide what is right or wrong in different situation. Unang-una na dito yung utilitarianism. Focuses on the greatest good for the greatest number. Yung utilitarianism po ay tungkol kung ano yung makabubuti sa mas maraming tao. Tinitignan niya yung overall na epekto ng isang aksyon para sa maraming tao. Halimbawa, may isang photographer na kumuha ng picture ng baha sa isang komunidad. Kahit may ilang taong pwedeng mahiya or maapektuhan ng image na yon, ng picture na yon, dahil sa picture, mas maraming tao ang makakaalam at makakatulong. So basically, kahit merong part na parang mali kasi may mapapayang tao, pero meron din side na pwede silang matulungan dahil doon. Mas makaka-attract sila ng maraming tao or maraming makakita para tulungan sila. So okay ito kasi mas maraming, 'di ba? Maraming natulungan kaysa sa naabala. Then yung pangalawa naman is deontology. Emphasis rules, honesty and consent. So dito is nakafocus siya sa pagsunod ng rules, pagiging honest at paghingi ng consent. Kahit maganda ang outcome, kung mali ang ginawa mo, hindi pa rin ito tama. Halimbawa, gusto mong picture lang isang bata, kahit maganda yung shot, kung wala kang pahintulot sa magulang, hindi dapat ito gawin. 'Di ba? Mali pa rin kahit maganda ang result kasi hindi ka naman sunod sa rules, hindi ka naman kumuha ng consent. Kasi bata pa yun, kaya naman walang consent ng magulang. 'Di ba? Parang morally wrong siya. Morally wrong talaga siya. Then, pangatlo naman is the virtue ethics. Focuses on the photographer's character, honesty, and respect. Dito, yung virtue ethics is nakabase sa ugali at values mo. Kung mabuti ka bang tao, may respeto at malasakit. Sabihin natin, halimbawa, may nakita kang umiyak sa ospital. Kahit pwede mo siyang picturean, pipiliin mong huwag gawin dahil may respeto ka sa kanya. 'Di ba? Iniisip mo kung tama ba ito bilang mabuting tao. Siyempre, umiiyak na yung bata, tapos pipicturean mo pa. Sa tingin mo, makakatulong ba 'yon dun sa kalagayan? Sabi natin makakatulong siya, pero batang umiiyak kasi 'yun. 'Di ba? So, yun lang yung ethical frameworks. Alam ko marami pa niyan, pero ito lang muna i-discuss natin. So, basically, recap lang, yung utilitarianism is makakabuti ba ito sa mas maraming tao? Then, deontology, tama ba? Umaayon ba ito sa rules? Then, virtue ethics, kung mabuti ka bang tao? 'Di ba? Yun lang. Thank you.
I-wrap up natin, ang photography ay hindi lang basta-basta sa pagkuha ng litrato or ng image. It is a powerful visual language. It is a way para makipag-communicate ng emotion, ideas, and stories ng walang salita. And kapag naintindihan natin ang technical side nito, tulad ng compositions, lighting, shutter speed, at framing, at ang ethical side naman, which is yung consent, representation, manipulation, nagiging mas mahusay tayo bilang isang visual communicator. At yung pag-unawa ng mga ito, nagbibigay sa atin ng dalawang importanteng kakayahan, which is yung creating meaningful images and interpreting visuals critically. Creating meaningful image. Halimbawa, may isang photojournalist na nagko-cover ng natural disaster. And hindi lang basta nagka-capture ng kabuluhan or maingat niyang piniframe yung isang shot para ipakita ang human resilience. Halimbawa, isang bata tumutulong sa isang matandang kapitbahay dahil alam niya kung paano mo nakaka-apekto yung ilaw, angle, at subjects sa emotions ng nanonood. And in interpreting visuals critically, an example is yung kapag nakita tayo ng news photo ng isang protesta, pwede tayong magtanong, clean up ba yun para ipakita lang yung isang parte ng crowd? May filter ba? Sino yung nag-publish at bakit? At yung mga tanong na ito yung nag-protect sa atin para hindi tayo ma-mislead. And the next slide is, who took it? Why was it taken? And how was it created? Yun yung mga tanong na dapat nating tinatanong. So ngayon, kailangan natin tandaan na every time na makita tayo ng isang litrato sa social media man, textbook, diaryo, or billboard, kahit saan, lagi tayong magpo-pause and tanong yung sarili natin yung tatlong tanong na yun. Who took it? Sino yung kumuha nito? So, mahalaga yung background ng photographer. Yung litratong kinuha ng isang government agency is maaring may ibang agenda kumpara sa kinuha ng isang independent journalist o ng isang ordinaryong tao gamit lang yung phone niya. Halimbawa, isang litrato ng isang military operation ay nagmumukhang iba-iba. Depende kung sino yung kumuha. Next is, why was it taken or bakit ito kinuha? So, bawat litrato may layunin. Lagi natin tatandaan yun. Kinuha ba to para mag-inform, para magbenta ng produkto, para magbukaw ng emosyon, or para manipulahin yung opinion ng tao. So, halimbawa, mga food photos sa mga advertisement. So, syempre, professionally styled na yun. Tapos saka heavily edited. Yung mga burgers na nakita mo sa commercial, halos hindi kapareho lang talagang darating sa tray mo kapag dumating na sa'yo. Pag alam mo yung bakit, mas mahalaga ang interpretasyon mo sa larawan. So, how was it created? Paano ito ginawa? Kasama dito yung lahat mula camera settings, lighting setup, hanggang sa post-processing at AI editing. Halimbawa, ang isang dramatic black and white photo ng isang refugee camp ay maaring heavily edited para sa contrast ng mood na pwede magpalalim ng empathy or pwede din namang mag-distort ng katotohanan. Depende sa intensyon ng photographer. And kapag lagi natin tinatanong yung mga tanong na to, hindi tayo nagiging passive viewers, nagiging active at informed tayo. And pati yung mga tao, alam natin na yung mga taong critical na nakipag-ugnayan sa visual world sa paligid natin. And then, yun, hindi na lang natin basta-basta tinatanggap lahat ng nakita